Have you ever felt completely drained and, not because of what you did, but because of everything you've been carrying? Not physical weight, but the invisible kind. The mental clutter, the emotional pressure. That constant buzzing urge to keep up, to stay connected, to say yes, when you're begging inside for a moment of stillness. We often think exhaustion is about how much we've done, but sometimes it's about how little we've paused. The truth is, we're not just tired, we're overstimulated. Our minds are flooded. Our days feel like an endless scroll. And before we even notice, we're living life on autopilot, moving fast but missing meaning. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, philosopher, and one of the great Stoic minds, wrote something simple, yet revolutionary. If you seek tranquility, do less. Or do only what is essential and do it with intention. Let that sink in for a second. He didn't say do nothing. He didn't say quit. He said, be selective, be deliberate, because clarity isn't found in the chaos, it's found in the calm that follows when we choose less noise and more purpose. This video isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about stepping out of autopilot and back into awareness, into a life where your choices come from within, not from the pressure of a ping or a post. So if you've been feeling burnt out, scattered, or just not quite like yourself, maybe it's not because you're doing too little, but because you've been trying to carry too much. Let's talk about what happens when you finally let go. You know what's wild? Most of us aren't just tired, we're triggered. Not by one big thing, but by 1,000 little ones. Notifications, deadlines, arguments, the news, a passive-aggressive email, a friend's success on Instagram. It's like we're stuck in a constant loop of reaction dodging, defending, deflecting, and we start to confuse all that motion with actual progress. But here's the truth. Being busy isn't the same as being aligned. We've become so conditioned to respond to everything instantly that we forget we actually have a choice to pause, to breathe, to not let the outside world hijack our inner peace. The Stoics had a name for this sanctuary within us. They called it the inner citadel. It's the unshakable core of your being, the place no one can enter unless you open the door. And the more you react without intention, the more you hand over the keys. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt truly centered, not because you escaped to a cabin in the woods, but right in the middle of your regular noisy life? That's the challenge. That's the practice. Because your power isn't found in answering every message, fixing every problem, or staying endlessly productive. Your real power is in protecting that sacred space within you, choosing what gets your energy. And more importantly, choosing what doesn't. The world will always be noisy, but your mind, that can be still, that can be strong. You're not here to chase every fire. You're here to build the fire within. Let's be honest, how often do you get interrupted in a single day? A buzz from your phone, a notification, a message, a headline. It's like the world is constantly knocking on your mental door, and without even realizing it, you keep answering. But here's the catch. Every time you do, you're paying a price. Bit by bit, your clarity gets chipped away. You lose track of what you were doing or why you were doing it in the first place. You feel scattered, not because you're incapable, but because your attention is being pulled in 20 different directions. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That line has stuck with me for years. Because we're taught to seek answers out there, success, validation, peace, but the truth, the most powerful shifts happen in here. Inside your own mind. Inside your own choices. That's where Stoicism steps in, not as a cold, rigid set of rules, but as a reminder that the world doesn't get to decide your peace. That no matter how loud life gets, you can return to the stillness within you. And I get it. It's hard. We live in a world that rewards urgency, not reflection. But just because something's urgent doesn't mean it's important. Just because it grabs your attention doesn't mean it deserves your energy. What would happen if, today, You paused before reacting. If you chose your response instead of letting it be chosen for you, you're not the noise, you're not the chaos, you're the quiet behind it. And that's where your strength has been waiting all along. Let me ask you something, Honetho. Many times have you told yourself, I'll start tomorrow? Maybe it was a new habit, a dream, a conversation you knew you needed to have. You meant it. It wasn't a lie. Or at least, it didn't feel like one. But tomorrow has a funny way of staying just out of reach. It's always waiting until it's not. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could be good today, but instead, you choose tomorrow." That lineage cuts, because deep down, we know it's true. Procrastination wears a disguise. It tells us we're being patient, that we're planning, that we're waiting for the right time. But in truth, we're hesitating, hiding, stalling in the hallway between who we are and who we want to become. And the cost isn't just lost time, it's something far deeper. It's identity. Because every time you delay what matters, you reinforce a version of yourself that doubts, that avoids, that plays safe. And slowly, your confidence erodes. Not because you failed, but because you never tried. What if just for today you stopped waiting for the perfect moment? What if you did the one small thing you've been avoiding? Not because you feel ready, but because it's time to stop letting fear disguise itself as logic. The Stoics remind us, life isn't promised, it's loaned. And procrastination? It's the quiet thief of becoming. You won't notice what it's stealing until the bag feels empty and the years feel short. So as there's a kind of silence we rarely talk about, the silence of indecision. You know it. That space where you're holding a choice in your hands, flipping it over, examining every angle. Days pass, weeks, sometimes even months, and still no action. It feels like you're being careful, responsible. But often, you're not buying time, you're burning it. Seneca said it best. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And indecision? It's one of the most deceptive forms of waste there is. Because it wears the mask of thoughtfulness, but underneath, it's fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of regret, fear of owning the outcome. But here's the thing action teaches you. It moves you, even when it's messy, even when it's imperfect. But indecision, it keeps you stuck, spinning in circles, wearing mental grooves into the ground but going nowhere. Aristotle once said, "Choice, not chance, determines your destiny." And it's true, your life isn't shaped by what happens to you. It's shaped by what you choose to do next. So, what have you been hesitating on? A project? A relationship? A change you know is long overdue? You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need a guarantee. You just need one clean, honest decision. Because clarity doesn't come before the choice, it comes after. And the longer you wait to move, the heavier the waiting becomes. So here's your reminder. The door doesn't open by thinking about it. It opens when you decide to walk through yourself. What if today is the only tomorrow you'll ever get? We don't talk about this enough, but being always available is slowly wearing us down. Somewhere along the way, we started treating ourselves like emergency hotlines. Always on, always reachable. Emails at midnight, texts during dinner, notifications the moment we open our eyes. And the result? Our minds never get a chance to rest. Our energy is split into 1,000 tiny fragments and we call that normal. But here's the truth. You weren't built to be accessible 24/7. Your mind needs boundaries just as much as your time does. Carl Jung once said, "Solitude is where one discovers one is not alone." And solitude isn't isolation, it's a return to center. It's the space where your own voice gets louder than the noise. How often do you protect that space? Or are you letting every ping, every request, every "can you just real quick" steal your presence one reply at a time? The Stoics believed in preserving peace like a sacred flame. Not shutting the world out, but choosing when to let it in. Saying no not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Because every time you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to something that restores you. So maybe it's time to mute that thread. Let the email wait. Say, not now, without guilt. You don't owe the world your constant attention. You owe yourself clarity, focus, and the kind of quiet that allows your truest thoughts to rise. Because in the stillness, when the noise dies down, that's where you remember who you really are. Have you ever noticed how heavy a grudge can feel? Not physically, but emotionally. Like you're dragging something behind you that no one else can see, but it slows everything down. The conversations, the relationships, the joy, even your sleep. Here's the truth we don't say out loud enough. Holding on to pain doesn't protect you. It drains you. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." And that's powerful, because it flips the narrative. Instead of carrying someone else's behavior inside you like poison, you choose a different path. You choose freedom. Grudges don't just live in your mind. They settle in your body. They echo in your tone. They leak into your future. And often, the person who hurt you, they've moved on. They're not thinking about what happened, but you are, over and over again, replaying it, refeeding it, reinforcing it. Why? Maybe because part of you thinks letting go means it didn't matter, that forgiving them makes it okay. But it doesn't. Forgiveness doesn't say, "It was fine." It says, "I'm done letting this own me." That's not weakness. That's strength. That's power. Stoicism teaches us to guard our peace like sacred ground. Not everyone deserves to occupy space in your heart, your mind, or your story. So if you're holding on to something or someone, ask yourself, is this helping me become who I want to be? Or is it just a weight I've forgotten how to put down? Let go, not for them, for you. Because peace doesn't come from holding on, it comes from finally deciding to release. There's a war happening around you every single day, but it's not fought with weapons, it's fought with distractions, with headlines, notifications, breaking news, endless scrolls, and emotional triggers. And the battlefield? It's your mind. Modern life doesn't just want your time, it wants your attention, it wants your outrage, your reaction, your energy. And if you're not intentional, you end up giving away the most precious parts of yourself without even noticing. 1 minute you're sipping your morning coffee in peace. The next, you're angry at something a stranger posted online. Exhausted, reactive, scattered, and you're not even sure why. This is where the Stoics had it right. They spoke of a state called apatheianot, to be confused with apathy. It doesn't mean not caring. It means not being controlled by what doesn't deserve your inner peace. It's emotional discipline, calm in chaos, choosing your response instead of letting life choose it for you. Because when you react to everything, you lose something sacred, your sovereignty. You stop being the author of your life and start living in everyone else's story. So here's a reminder. Not every opinion needs a response. Not every problem is yours to fix. Not every alert deserves your energy. You don't win the attention war by fighting harder. You win by not joining every battle. And in that stillness, in that space between stimulus and response, you'll find something priceless. Your power, your clarity, your peace. Some people don't raise their voice. They don't criticize or confront. And yet, after talking to them, you feel drained, like someone quietly reached into your chest and took a piece of your energy with them. We all have people like that in our lives. Friends we've known forever. Family members we're afraid to disappoint. Colleagues we tolerate out of habit. But here's the thing. Just because someone has been around doesn't mean they should stay close. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Not louder, not richer, not more impressive, just better." Because the people around you don't just shape your mood, they shape your mindset. They influence your decisions, Your habits, even your self-worth. Think of your inner circle like soil. If it's toxic, even the strongest seed struggles to grow. But when it's rich with support, honesty, calm energy, you thrive. So take a moment to ask, who gets access to your most vulnerable thoughts? Who do you call when you're unsure? Who has a front row seat in your life? And have they earned it? This isn't about cutting people off carelessly. It's about protecting the sacred ground that is your focus, your peace, your direction. Because energy is contagious, and the people closest to you, they either pull you toward your higher self or further from it. Choose wisely. Your soul is listening to who you let in. We live in a world obsessed with more. More goals, more hustle, more achievement, more everything. But what if the real path to peace isn't found in adding, but in subtracting? Letting go isn't failure, it's freedom. Sometimes we carry things out of habit, old dreams that no longer fit, people who no longer see us, roles we've outgrown, thoughts that were only ever meant to be temporary, but we made them permanent. And slowly, all that emotional weight begins to dim who we are. Not all at once, quietly, subtly, a little more each day. But here's the truth. You don't become who you're meant to be by clutching tighter to everything. You become that person when you release what no longer serves you. Letting go is an act of strength. It's saying, I choose clarity over chaos, presence over proving, peace over pressure. Because peace doesn't scream, it whispers. It meets you in moments when you finally stop chasing what was never yours to hold. It finds you when your soul has space to breathe again. And in that space, without the noise, without the weight, you remember who you've always been underneath it all. So here's your invitation. Let go of the version of you that was built for survival and make room for the one that's ready to live. Your clarity matters. Your calm is sacred. Your presence has value protected. Because no one walks lighter than the one who's finally learned to release. We've been taught that peace comes from having more. More discipline, more goals, more tools, more control. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that real peace doesn't come from adding, it comes from subtracting. Subtracting the noise, the clutter, the expectations, releasing what no longer fits, no longer fuels, no longer feels aligned with who you're becoming. See, letting go isn't giving up. It's not weakness. Letting go is wisdom in motion. It's the quiet strength to say, I no longer need to carry this. And in a world that worships hustle and glorifies chaos, choosing simplicity becomes an act of rebellion. Because the Stoic path, it's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming intentional. It's about asking, does this thought serve me? Does this habit bring clarity or confusion? Is this pursuit rooted in truth or just noise? When you begin to subtract with purpose, what remains is pure. What remains is Eucomer, clearer, more grounded than ever before. So as this journey comes to a close, maybe the question isn't, what should I do next? Maybe it's, what am I finally ready to release? Because sometimes the most powerful step forward is letting go of what was holding you still. Thank you for being here, for choosing clarity over chaos, for walking the quiet path back to your own stillness. And whenever you need a reminder of truth, of focus, of calm, know this. We'll be right here.